Welcome to the UK Crypto Podcast. I'm Paula, and as always, I'm joined by Matty. Today's episode is a big one. We're sitting down with someone who has seen crypto from a level that most people will never experience. Not from the outside, not from Twitter, but from the inside of one of the biggest exchanges in the world. Our guest today is Steve, a former global VP at Binance. And this is going to be a rare conversation. We're talking about how he got into crypto, what it's really like behind the scenes at Binance, the biggest surprises in the industry, the good, the bad, the things that most people never see. And of course, we're going to bring it home to the UK, regulation, access issues, and why platforms like Binance feel almost blocked out from everyday users here. Right, let's get into it.
The sponsor of today's episode is the Crypto Wolfpack. Inside there, you've got daily live streams, signals, and also community. Because doing crypto on your own can feel lonely. And doing it as a team, that's how you become successful. If you're interested in joining the Crypto Wolfpack, please head over to cryptowolfpack.co.uk or click the link that's in the description.
Right, Steve, welcome. Thank you so much for coming today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So, tell us about where crypto first entered your world.
Oh, well, I first really sort of came across crypto was randomly in Beijing in about 2017.
Okay.
I was working for a Chinese startup in the mobility sector, and blockchain technology was starting to sort of become a bit more of a conversation. And then one of the guys I was working with said, I'm leaving Beijing. I'm going to move to Tokyo to go and work for this thing called Cardano.
Okay.
And off he went. And that was that. And I thought, what's he going to go to Tokyo for, to go and work for something called? What is this? And so that was really the sort of first time I came about it across of any interest.
Yeah.
And that was really kicked it off. And then another guy I worked with was really into Bitcoin at that time as well.
Yeah.
So sort of being a naturally curious person, I thought, well, I'm going to look into this.
Yeah. Because marketing is your background, isn't it? Tell us about that journey a little bit so that people understand where's marketing been in your career? What sort of things have been doing?
Yeah, so I was fortunate to start my career at Unilever, which is one of the best marketing schools there ever has been.
Yeah.
I mean, slightly maybe not so much these days because it's been taken over by other things that have been happening. And I then went to work for eBay because I was interested in technology and marketing. And back then, e-commerce was the new technology.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to forget that, people couldn't buy online back in, the early 2000s almost.
Yeah, and everybody buys everything online now.
Exactly, totally, yeah.
The world's changed.
Exactly, now agents are buying and humans aren't even buying.
Yeah.
So I was in the e-commerce section for a very long time. I said I did work for eBay, work for Shopify, and it was just really getting a bit boring for me because the technology challenges had been solved, or they have been solved.
Yeah.
And so therefore, this is of course pre-AI, blockchain was the next big interesting technology.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I want to go and work in that.
Yeah.
And that's what then really led me to Binance because I was keen on the technology side of things. I'm not a trader, we'll talk about trading, but I'm not a trader. So my background is really marketing, technology, bringing that to mass adoption.
Yeah.
And therefore, blockchain was the next place to go directly after
because
e-commerce.
It's interesting because you actually left eBay before they got involved in crypto, because obviously now they have a stable coin, don't they? And that's been their evolution. But I mean, for you, did you see it as just another opportunity, or did you think, do you know what? It's such a big opportunity that I can't give it up.
Yeah, I don't think I even knew what the opportunity really was. It was really a curiosity in the first instance, because I always like to ask the question, well, how does that work? Why does that do that?
Yeah.
And so this thing came up, blockchain looks interesting, looks difficult, looks unusual. And so that was my curiosity.
Yeah.
And that's what, people are now learning about AI today. It's, in that respect. So it was really curiosity that drove it. And then when you start to see the opportunities, then you think, how do I really get involved here?
Yeah, how can I use my skills in that arena?
Yeah.
And how did that then progress on to Binance and that opportunity? How did that come about?
Yeah, well, I mean, that Binance was 2021, and at that time, Binance was under significant pressure from US government, the SEC, from many things. Yeah. And there was concerted effort by people known or unknown to really try and control Binance at that time. And the company itself was going through not teething trouble is the wrong thing to say, but it was really going through a time when it was really under pressure from a reputation perspective.
Yeah, because they worked really hard to try and change that.
Yeah, and that was what I went in to do. Another couple of colleagues of mine went in to do, because one of my sort of first interactions with CZ was I had an interview with CZ on a Zoom call. He was in Singapore at the time.
Yeah.
And, of course, I knew who CZ was and I knew what Binance was, but I was unsure on how much they knew how much trouble the business was in from a reputation perspective.
Right.
So, CZ and I had a very just brief 10-minute conversation. He's not the sort of guy that chit-chats very much, which is no problem. But I said to him, I asked him, how long is it going to take us to fix this reputation issue that Binance is now suffering from?
Yeah.
And in my mind, I had a sort of this parameter that was, if he said, "Oh, it's no big deal, it's no problem," I'd have thought, this is not for me.
It would have been your red flag.
That would have been my flag, exactly. But he said, no, this is going to take 2 years for us to fix this.
Okay.
And at that time, I then realised that he understood the severity of the issue that was facing.
That's battle for you then, isn't
exactly,
it?
yeah, totally. And so as soon as he said, no, it's going to take us 2 years, and what he meant by that was becoming regulated, getting licenses around the world, etc., I thought, he understands that this is not a quick Band-Aid. It's a fundamental piece of work that needs to be done. So so that was then what really led me into Binance. And I asked him one other question was, what do we do if we disagree? But again, another thing I want to say to him, because we're going to go through some, interesting conversations. I said, what do we do if we disagree? And he said, well, look, I have lots of people around me and we'll talk it through and we'll do what's right for users.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So that was it, right? It wasn't whether I'm right or you're right. It's whatever the users want. So I'm sure we'll talk about it later. But, again, that said to me that he's really user-focused and the company was really user-focused. Yeah. And again, so you have that. He knew how big the problem was and he knew it's to solve for users. Yeah, that were the two things, and there you go. And that's how I ended up working.
And it wasn't egotistical then, because it's not I'm right and I'm gonna do it, and this is going to be a problem, and I'm going to come out looking amazing. It's about Binance and the growth and getting this working for their end users.
Yeah, 100%. I think there are people, whether it's Jeff Bezos or CZ, that are so user focused, and it's so genuine and so inherent. That what drives them. That's why they're successful. There are many people who say they're user focused but really aren't. Yeah. But in my experience working with CZ, that's exactly what his North Star is and was.
Oh, that's amazing to hear.
A good guy then, in terms of somebody that you'd want to be building something for people.
Well, and actually, it's really interesting that you say that, because there's been so much controversy, hasn't there, over the last few years about him.
Oh, massive.
And actually, it's nice to hear a balance, because you only hear what's reported. And we've talked about it often on the podcast about these sensationalised headlines, and not everybody gets a fair rep. So it's nice to kind of hear a bit of balance on that.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you to comment on this, but the deal with the Trump family is going to be interesting, I think. Yeah. They're saying off the Americans, actually, look at his face. But and I saw that coming through. I was a bit like, that looks murky. Yeah, well, that looks incredibly murky. Yeah.
I mean, the US has done a real 180, because back then, 2021, 22, whether it was inspired by what FTX were doing, the US government, SEC, was trying to destroy Binance.
Not just Binance. There was a lot they were trying to destroy crypto.
Exactly. I mean, and look at that for a second. I guess what we had back then is you had a parallel financial economy suddenly exploding. Yeah. If you are the world's global reserve currency, the US dollar, you think, blimey, that's a real risk to us. Yeah. And then what you also have is you have the main player in that sector, Binance, is not an American company. Yeah. Unlike the big US tech companies. Yeah.
Like Ripple.
Exactly. It's a remote company based somewhere between Dubai and Singapore and Tokyo, and they can't control it. Yeah. In the way that they can control other companies, let's say. Mm-hmm. And so they had to try and do something. Yeah. And that's when the pressure came on. Through various media and various political and various legal aspects to try and really constrict Binance. Yeah, it was really a control thing. But now with President Trump in place, crypto in the US, I think, is really in a much better place, and I think everyone should be supportive of that. I think.
Yeah, because Trump's done a real U-turn, hasn't he, in his policies around crypto? And do you think it was a case that America got to the point where they realised that they couldn't control it and they had to embrace it?
I also think as well, yes, they certainly try to control it for sure, I think. But I think America is a land of innovation and entrepreneurialism.
Yeah.
And I think the crypto sector is exactly that. It's entrepreneurialism, it's innovation, and technology companies in America are very well advanced. And so it's an obvious place for them to support, not try and crush.
They want to be the global leaders in it. I mean, look what Trump did when he came in. He literally removed the people that were anti-crypto in the SEC. Gone.
Yeah.
Gone. Day one. Boom. In fact, what happened was, before the guy got pushed, the day that Trump is it inaugurated, the very next day, the guy resigned, didn't he, from the SEC? He went, because he knew what was coming. He's like, Anyway, it's been emotional, guys. Exactly. I'm gone. Bye-bye.
Like those guys trying to do prohibition back in the 1940s. They're going to go and have a drink after it's been repealed.
Absolutely. So how did Binance approach that? What did you guys implement to try and change that for the users?
Yeah, I think it was really about telling our story, because one of the things, what you see now today, of course, CZ is very public. He's written his book. He appeared on many podcasts and many talks. It was about getting out there and talking about your story and what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Because many companies that are in crisis, their first instinct is to be defensive.
Yeah.
To stop away, not say anything. Whereas reality is you have to get out there and tell your story. And so part of our guidance at the time was, let's get out and tell our story, because the story is good.
Yeah.
Binance was user-focused, trying to do everything right, was leaning into regulation and embracing regulation. But of course, if you're allowing other people to control that narrative, you're on the back foot.
Yeah.
And so it was really about getting out there and telling our story. And back to my little story nugget about CZ knowing he had to change the business, was we had to lean into that, wanted to lean into that.
Yeah.
And so get out there, tell your story, because the story is good.
Yeah.
It's not as if it was, trying to tell us something that wasn't true. It was really authentic.
Yeah, because I think you look at a lot of these big corporations and you don't really associate there being a person behind them, do you? Because they become quite faceless. And as a user, if you are using Binance for your trading and all of a sudden it's becoming difficult, you can't use it in the country that you live, well, you're just going to go and find another one. Why are they going to use you? Why are they going to advocate to be your user? And actually connecting that with that story behind it, I guess, was probably the only thing that you guys could do.
Yeah, totally. And again, it was all authentic there. Many times people would, text CZ and say, I've got this issue, and he would get onto that to customer service and do it. And we all, I was on the senior leadership team at Binance. We all had to go and do customer service training.
Okay.
We all had to go and do our days and our hours on the calls with the customer service agents, because if we didn't know how to do it, then why could we ask our users to do it as well? So we were all, it wasn't just PR, it was authentic.
Yeah.
And one of the great things about when you're told to do something, like go on, there was a sheet and you had to do it. And if you didn't do it, you'd get a call and said, why have you not done it?
Okay.
So it wasn't optional either.
Okay.
I wanted to do it, but it wasn't optional. It was, you will do this.
Yeah.
And off we went and did it. So that the user focus thing is really important. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important. And I guess that there's a lot of big senior leaders in a lot of big companies that never get to actually speaking to the people that are using their products.
Yeah.
So bringing that link together, did that surprise you, having worked in some other larger organisations and perhaps not done that before, that they were that way?
Well, I've been fortunate to work in a company that I worked for, is Shopify. It was a great company. And Toby and Harley, that run the company, are also that way inclined as well. Again, very authentic, very customer-focused people. But again, I worked another big retailer where it was just a toxic workplace.
Right.
Because people were just fighting against each other for power or authority or whatever it is. But in those fast-growing companies like Shopify, like Binance, where there is growth, everyone is on a mission.
Yeah.
There's a clear mission.
Yeah.
And then everyone's aligned to that. And that was really a fantastic place. That's where I've always wanted to work. And when you get to work in those environments, they really are powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Because internally they feel different, like everybody's singing off the same hymn sheet almost.
100%, absolutely.
So Binance, global leader in what they do. That was your first job in crypto, though, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, first actual job in crypto. I thought I'd rather than doing it in an apprentice, I'll go straight into the top team.
I mean, fair play. I mean, that's what I was going to say. I was going to use a football analogy actually, because did it feel like you was working for the biggest, or was you aware of it? Or was it just something that was never spoken about? So I've worked somewhere before that was the market leader in what they did, and they hammered us with it. They really drummed it into you. And in fact, they even kind of put it on you a little bit that it don't ever leave, because it's the wrong way to go kind of thing.
Nothing's ever going to be as good.
Were you bombarded by saying, we are the biggest, we are the best, or was it a lot more low-key than that?
I think it was somewhat low-key on terms of the scale of the business. But saying that, with the amount of just social noise around X, in particular Twitter at the time, it was just, apps like a train coming at you all the time, and the media, etc.
Yeah.
So that was sort of the external coming in. And then what's also interesting is one of Binance's core values is we are hardcore.
Right.
And I can tell you, working there is a hardcore place to work. Not in a negative sense. It was just, we are there to do things, and it's going to take time. It's going to be hard work. So my contract at the vice president level at Binance was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Wow.
Crazy. That was actually in your contract.
That was in my contract, right?
None of this. I didn't even know contracts like that existed.
Exactly. And I looked at it and went, should I sign that? Oh, I was going to sign it today. And then so what happened was there was a daily call at 4 p.m. every day with the leadership team, CZ on the team. Sometimes it would last 1 minute, nothing to talk about. Sometimes it would last an hour.
Okay.
Then there was a Saturday call at 1 o'clock where we go through the business performance of the week before.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was just full on. And, again, so you had to be excited in that, but it was a hardcore existence.
Yeah.
And that was really exciting. So to your point, Matty, it was, you knew you were doing something because your standards had to be so high.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you tried to go on that daily call and you hadn't done what you said you were going to do or whatever, you'd get called out. Not in a negative, aggressive way, but okay, you haven't done it.
Yeah.
So you had to. So it was. I imagine if you are, to use a football analogy, if you're training at Manchester City, you have to have standards.
Yeah. They'll probably be very aware. They? See old Alex Ferguson thing, isn't it? Where he used to drill into them. This is Manchester United. We're not like the rest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so when you're there, so there's an internal pressure, and I think it's a good pressure.
Yeah.
But it's back to, because you're doing it for the users, and it will be successful, and that's an outcome of our hard work.
I remember watching a documentary about the FTX collapse, and when you look at the way that company was structured compared to what you're describing, worlds apart. So they were just a bunch of tech guys that got way out of hand and just went huge, and they were just all over the place. There was no structure, no nothing.
Yeah.
That's a completely different gravy to what you're talking about here, which is something where it is well thought out, well structured, well drilled.
Yeah, exactly. And
coming from the top as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you a very good example of that is, I think we used to look at FTX, and I think I said they had 45 employees, okay, whatever that number was. And we think, well, hold on a minute. We've got 1,000 people in compliance at Binance.
Wow.
Right? And compliance was a pretty, they're unpopular team internally because they make you do things to be compliant.
Yeah.
And you think, well, how can this business, FTX, have 45 people, on beanbags in the Bahamas, and we've got 1,000 people doing, money laundering, not money laundering.
Checking.
Money laundering at Binance.
Yeah, the title.
That came out wrong. Anti-money laundering. That's what I was trying to say. Anti-money laundering, And so that's exactly that sort of, it was a proper company.
Yeah, good.
Doing things in a proper way.
Were the decision making was decision making fast there, or was everything really well thought out and structured?
I think it was a mix of both, because I don't know who said it, there's nothing more liberating than a tight brief.
Right.
And I think one of CZ's OKRs, personal OKRs in 2022 was to get one G7 regulatory license.
Okay.
Because as we were going to get a license in Dubai, etc., one of his goals was to get a G7 license. I think it ended up being France being the first one.
Yeah.
And so that was it. That was get a G7 regulatory license.
Yeah.
That's it. And of course that then exploded to thousands of work streams.
Yeah.
But it was the very clear goal that we wanted to do, because if we had to become regulated, had to become, compliant. And so that was the goal, and so simple, but then it then led to, a huge amount of work.
I've got a regulation question. I'm not sure if you'll know the answer, but I don't know who else I'd ask on the planet apart from you this question. So when it comes to Binance, right? Big company, the biggest, in fact. I'm in the UK. I can't even read their forums without a VPN. Do you have any idea why that is? Obviously, it's the FCA rules, I should imagine, but why? Why, for instance, can I use a different, like a Coinbase? Let's use that as an example, right? I can go and register at Coinbase today, no issues at all. Why not Binance? It's never made sense to me. I've never been able to find a reason for it.
Yeah, that might be a legacy back to, again, because, the FCA was very much following the SEC's clamp down. Yeah. Let's call it that. I think it's no surprise that Binance put its European headquarters in France because France, again, saw an opportunity in Europe to sort of not own crypto regulation, but say to be welcoming.
Yeah.
I remember one trip when CZ came to London. We were doing a lot of government political meetings. That was the time I think Boris Johnson was the Prime Minister. The UK government was just distracted by stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Stuff, yeah.
Whatever it might be, post-COVID, Boris Johnson, could be anything,
Yeah.
And so we just didn't feel the doors were open to us.
That's crazy.
To number 10 or the FCA or the Treasury. And we had a lot of people trying to help us to get in those doors, have those conversations. But the government was just distracted. And then so we go, well, why don't we go and see what's happening in Paris, go to Paris and, and...
All of a sudden, it's easier to do business there.
Easier to do business. And, suddenly I think CZ did have a meeting with President Macron, and of course, it's relationship business. And of course, the French equivalent of the FCA, of course, worked very hard. But that's where we then invested the time because it was receptive to us.
So we learned this when we was at... ZB, which is the largest Web3 crypto conference in the UK. It's in London. We were getting that from when we were seeing people giving talks. They were saying the UK is too difficult to do business with and people are going abroad and that needs to change. Without saying the person said the speech, I don't want to get the demonetized. But that was a thing that we was getting this, the major companies were going, it's just too difficult to do business here.
Yeah, exactly right. And so therefore, that's why, Dubai's become a hub, as we all know. Yeah. Because it's a forward-thinking market. It's a lot of people working there. The ADGM, which is a very respected regulator, has said, look, let's work together and find the solution to this. Yeah. As opposed to just saying, look, I haven't got time to do this. The FCA has many things to do, but it just didn't have the bandwidth to say, let's talk about this.
Let's get this deal. Yeah.
Do you think the FCA is too worried about risks? Do you think that they are stifling crypto for the UK because they are so risk off?
Yeah, I think if I was to, you can see that for sure. You could say that for sure. But I also think as well is that they're just overwhelmed.
Right.
I'm involved with an ex-Binance colleague of mine has started a business in the stablecoin world. And he's one of the 4 teams that's been invited into the FCA sandbox to look at stablecoin issuance in the UK. Yeah. So that's a really good thing. Yeah. And I think so what the FCA has done is said, let's, crypto trading, we're not sure, but stablecoins are a bit more... normal? Is that
we
the
can
right
understand them more.
It's more palatable.
Palatable. That's a great word. So they've started to do that, and they've invited. Revolut's one company, Restabilize, the company that I'm sort of somewhat involved in, is the other companies, 2 other companies. So they've got 4 companies in the sandbox. They're proper people, and they're working on it. So that is a good step in the right direction. Yeah. So I think they may not have been necessarily deliberately obstructive. But I think they just, they know they have to do something. Yeah. Because you say people are going elsewhere to do things. Yeah. And the pound sterling is still a very important currency. Yeah. The UK economy is a very important economy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you notice how Coinbase's nose were put well out of joint for not being in that sandbox? Now, they never said it was the reason why, but the day it got announced, the guy from Coinbase, I can't remember his name now, he went to social media, didn't he? Was talking about how it was a closed door and it wasn't open for anybody else to get involved.
Yeah. Just like the US is an open door for everybody to get involved.
It is difficult.
He wasn't happy not being at the party.
No,
Not happy at all.
no, but this is all about relationship building, isn't it? And that is the reality. And to have these meetings, you can't have everybody there. I guess you've got to have a segment of the market. But it's good to know that there are some conversations being had in the background, because from a news perspective in the UK, I think a lot of crypto investors just feel really flat and deflated, because I feel like a lot of people feel that no matter what happens in the UK, it doesn't affect crypto, because we don't have that power anymore. And we were one of the big financial hubs of the world. And there's been significant change. So I really hope there is more crypto innovation. I think the UK deserves that. And maybe this will link that.
We might need a change of government for that potentially, but it is what it is.
I mean, one of the things I do think, because I've been fortunate enough to work around the world, is one of the challenges for crypto in the UK is we have a very effective banking system, a very stable economy, etc. But if you are in, say, Nigeria or Ghana or Argentina, where there's hyperinflation, the banks control your money, there's a reason why you need an alternative currency. So if you get paid on a Friday in Nigeria, the chances are by money that's devalued or your bank has closed. So on the Friday, you are going to move that through P2P into something else.
Yes.
Now, we in the UK, of course, don't have that situation. So therefore, there's not a critical demand for crypto in the UK. It's a choice that we choose to make.
Correct.
Well, whereas if you're in Nigeria, Bolivia was a recent example where the devaluation, you have no alternative. If you want to keep the value of your money, you have to move it from your local currency into something else. Friday night after work. And so that's probably why, certainly in Northern Europe, there's not been that really demand and critical desire to have crypto. It's been more of a choice. And I think that's one of the reasons why, some of the biggest markets are Vietnam, Bangladesh, Ghana, Nigeria.
For stable coins.
For stable coins and for P2P as well. Those are the big use cases in those markets, huge volumes.
We made content on this, didn't we, recently, where we were talking about we don't think the West is really going to make that switch until there's a disaster in another Western country. And we gave an example, maybe there'd be a problem in a Greece or Australia or somewhere where something will happen, the banking system fails in a Western country, and the rest of the West will be like, okay, if it can happen there, it could happen here, and then they'll start potentially shifting towards stablecoins.
And I think stablecoins is the nice way into that, because it's a safer way. It is more stable, the very nature of it. I also think agentic payments and AI will bring stablecoins more, because they're easy to settle, they're faster, they're cheaper as well. So that will be a use case in the Western world, call it that, for sure.
What did you do after Binance? What happened then?
So after Binance, I had two jobs in Binance. So I worked for Binance.com, which is the exchange. And then I went to work for BNB Chain. I was Chief Marketing Officer of BNB Chain. And what's interesting, I think what a lot of folks perhaps don't know about Binance, CZ described that at the time, and this was several years ago, maybe out of date yet. It's sort of more a bit like Google. So Google has Alphabet at the top, which is the holding company. And that's really where CZ and the leadership team led. Then Binance.com was kind of like Google search, the main part of the business. And then you had BNB Chain, which is like maps and so on. So you had various parts of Binance. So Trust Wallet, I should say, Easy Labs. There are various then different companies within that. So I then moved across to be CMO of BNB Chain to ultimately just try and improve the usage of BNB Chain, which is very good. That was working directly with He, who is now the co-CEO of Binance and CZ's partner. And so I worked directly with her on that. And then after that, ultimately I left Binance because I was asked to leave. But again, that's no problem at all, because two things happen. One, people leave companies.
Of course,
And B, as it's hardcore, you get worn down. And that's just what happens. And I think people get refreshed over. So I think I did 2.5, nearly 3 years at Binance. I think that was I think a good innings. And so took a couple of months off, and then went to try and thought I better start my own business. So ended up trying to do a wallet business in Dubai.
Right. I guess when we first spoke about you leaving Binance, although you said I was asked to leave, you also said But I still speak to Susie. Like it's not on bad terms. But you literally were quite blasé about that. So I when we talk about the fact that you left, I just kind of want people to know that like you're not going, oh my God, Binance. Like it's been a real positive part of your journey with crypto.
Oh, 100%.
And probably taught you so much about being in the space.
Yeah, definitely. I think when I told CZ I was leaving, he said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear about that." And so I think, and I'm not saying I frequently speak, but once or twice, a couple of months ago, I did have a single conversation with CZ and with saw her at Token 49 recently. That's probably 18 months or so ago now. So and there's a huge alumni of Binance people as well out there.
Yeah.
So there's several big Telegram groups of ex-BNB Chain people, ex-Binance people, and so and I think so it's not family because I don't really believe business are families, but I absolutely left on good terms, and I think most people who worked in Binance and who were successful or interesting, I think are part of that group.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, I will not say many bad words against Binance at all because it was great fun and I really enjoyed it. And I think, but
it set you on your track for crypto, didn't it?
Yeah.
Because then you head over to Dubai.
Yeah.
And you set up this wallet business, and tell us a little bit about that. Who was it with? What did you do?
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to start my own business first and foremost, because having been an employee for most of my career, which there's a time for that, but there's also a time when you've got to go out on your own.
Yeah.
But also is you need an idea and you need co-founders as well.
Yeah.
At that time, Telegram continues to grow very quickly, and the opportunity was to build a Web3 wallet for Telegram.
Right.
Because Telegram was going to 1 billion users. It had a wallet already. It wasn't very good.
Yeah.
So the plan was to basically build a wallet for that. So
and everyone in crypto is using Telegram.
Totally. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, and I think in many ways, I should step back a bit. I think Telegram's approach is very much like Binance's. It's for the users,
right?
It's not for governments and things like that. So I think
to their detriment legally as well.
Exactly.
In Russia.
Exactly. So what you saw was, the US government trying to control Binance. You've had the French government trying to control Telegram.
The Russians.
Exactly. And so I think Telegram is I think a fabulous platform. And so it was right to obviously the was try and build a wallet on there, which we did build, but unfortunately, two things happened. One is we couldn't monetize it effectively because you're doing high numbers of trades, or either people are using it as a wallet and not trading. It's a wallet, so it's basically a storage, and therefore you just don't get the volume of transaction. Therefore, the revenue goes down. So that was that.
So who was that? Who did you do that with? Yeah,
so I worked some who's unfortunately well known for the wrong reasons. I co-founded that business with a guy called Roman Novak, who shockingly was kidnapped and murdered with his wife in Dubai last October, which was horrific.
So it was all over the press, wasn't it?
Yeah. Shocked the
and it was
crypto
labelled
world.
as a crypto murder. Really, let's get it straight. That's what it said. On the titles.
And I think I knew Roman very well. I knew Anna, his wife, very well. I knew his kids very well. They met their parents. So he was the co-founder of the business. And it's really shocking to see what happened. All I do know is that the business I was running at Fintopia was a legitimate business. We certainly were not the first person to try and company it to fail, which is what it did. But what happened to Roman and why it happened, I still have no idea. I don't think anybody has.
I think there's a dark side to Dubai as well. I think other people have touched on this before. So I think quite often it's the glitz and the glamour, but there is a darker side there as well, isn't there? I think
there's whether it's just Dubai or crypto in general. Crypto, I think
crypto Dubai. I meant really.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think. And that's, again, I think, I know you guys have spoken about this before in other podcasts, is sometimes crypto doesn't help itself.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems, and I'm not in any way saying that what Roman got involved in was anything, because I just simply don't know. But there are people in it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And there are people who are in it, who aren't competent to be in it or whatever, and that for sometimes. So for every 2 steps forward crypto does make with interesting things, it then makes a step back by something happening. And of course, and I think you said earlier, Paul, it then gets to a mainstream newspaper narrative, and people who aren't in crypto go, oh, it's crypto again. So it's Dubai murders, it's meme coins, it's pump and dump, it's got to be dump, it's whatever. And it just perpetuates that negativity that, mainstream and main media, mass media people don't think, oh, I'm going to stay away from that.
It was everywhere. The story was everywhere. Literally everywhere.
But for you personally, you're then in a situation where you've set up this business with the best of intentions. It hasn't done or been as successful as you'd hoped. Then your partner that you set it up with is you're having to deal with you're losing your friend and going through all those emotions. Where did that leave you? Because that must have been really difficult, Steve.
Yeah, that sounds tough.
Yeah, it was obviously very tough from a personal level, but then I guess I dealt with that by just diving into, we had already decided to close down the business and we'd already given notice to the team.
Right.
So we had to exit the team.
Yeah.
Close the offices, close down the contracts. I'm still dealing with legal matters around the companies involved because they were fully audited, etc. So we're still working through that. So I busied myself doing that. But yeah, it's like people who have lost people they know. It's
hard.
They come into your mind at the strangest times, and that's that. So
So what's next? Still crypto. Is it for you? Is this a long-term plan now?
Well, I'm still a holder of hopefully some tokens, also some value down the line. So I'm still believe in crypto, still believe in blockchain. I still believe in important solutions. I think stablecoins are super interesting, as we just talked about, for developing markets. Like many folks who are interested in the technology of blockchain, I have somewhat pivoted to AI.
Okay, yeah.
We should have such a hybrid between the two worlds right now.
Of course, exactly. And that's for the good and bad, because also you suddenly see all these hacks happening because they are AI agents.
They're getting better.
Right? They're getting quicker. And if you don't have security on your project, then someone's going to find a way in. So that's a big problem. So there's a security matter there. But also funny enough, I was sort of vibe coding an app the other day, and I've sort of vibe coded a ZK proof, zero knowledge proof payment app. And it was remarkably easy. Okay. Now, if you were looking at ZK proof stuff 18 months ago, you needed to be
a genius.
Yeah.
And now I thought, oh my God, I can actually do them. The Merkle proofs on the app were, what the hell, and so that was a great example of using AI to really move something forward in crypto, which is hard to do before, because we know zero knowledge proofs is very important, very opportune, but you just simply couldn't do it before because you had to be a mathematician from Cambridge University to do that. So that's very good. But I think payments and stable coins are going to be interesting, and so I'm leaning into that at the moment as well. So that's, I think, hopefully, touch wood, that's going to be quite interesting.
Because I am convinced that everybody is going to be using blockchain technology come the future. I don't think the majority of people are even going to realise that they're using it, but I think it is going to be so integrated. And when we talk about crypto very often to people that aren't in the space, there is this idea, because the press painted it as being dark and murky and the hackers sitting in their bedrooms with their hoods up. And I think there is still generations that still believe that's what crypto is. But I think these future generations coming through are really excited by the prospect of there being crypto and the technology that's working really fast. And I think there's so many opportunities in this space. Do you think that it's all going to be interlinked with AI in the future? Is that where it's going?
Yeah, I think so. But I think the great thing is people don't need to know how things work.
Yeah,
I agree.
I've sat in conferences at Zebu. I was at Token 2049, and I know quite a bit about crypto.
Yeah,
but you sit in these talks, and I think I do not understand what the hell you're saying.
I had this. So I went into the developer lab thing downstairs, and I walked in. I was like, what are they saying? Yeah. What are they saying? It's like another language,
So that might fine, guys, but stay away from users, please.
Yeah.
They don't need to know how it works.
Yeah.
They just need to know that it's fast and it's cheap and it just works, right?
Yeah.
And so I think if we can get over that, and the fact that you're going to be paying for things in stable coins or whatever, how it happens, forget about it. Just let it know it works. It's quick. It's cheap and easy.
Yeah.
That is the big.
You've made loads of content on this, and you got to often lean into that exact what you were saying, which is people will be getting into blockchain and they'll be affected with it, and it'll be in their lives, and they won't even know that thing they're using will just work.
Yeah.
And they won't be thinking, oh, that's crypto, that's blockchain. Yeah. They'll be going, oh, I just did this. And it worked.
Yeah.
And they're not even going to question the background. And I think that is the way you are right when you say that.
And I think the other thing, like we were talking about stable coins a lot, but the next integration is going to be the CBDCs, isn't it? Like, yes, we've got private companies with stable coins, but when the central banks take that step, and I think it's closer than we would like to
yes, I think, and is that good or bad?
I've got mixed.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
it's good in essence, but I think the potential for the misuse of the control,
programmable money.
Yeah, going back to where we started the conversation with is the desire of the US government to control Binance.
Yeah,
and is it Australia that has a CBDC? I think but yeah, that's governmental control.
Yeah.
And, the reason we got into crypto, I mean, someone once said to me, you're either in crypto because you're either a romantic or a pirate.
Right? I love that. Okay, just, I'm going to steal that as a title for one of my videos in the future. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And it's true, right? You're either a romantic in that you believe in utopia where everyone's equal, or you're a pirate because you want to break stuff. And maybe I'm a romantic pirate. I don't know what, or whatever what it is. But it's sort of but it's suddenly government control again. You think, that's exactly why we started doing crypto, because we didn't want this control.
I've made so much content on this.
Exactly. So yes, I mean, I think, unfortunately, the way that things go, governments do want control, and it's easier to control with things like CBDCs, etc. And that may not be a good thing.
Yeah. We've said about the programmable money. What happens if they suddenly say you're only allowed to buy so much beef that week, and then your card just doesn't work you're only allowed so many beers because it's Saturday.
Or geolocations on money being spent
you're only allowed to spend money within a certain zone of your house. I mean, we're talking about a real dystopia kind of, like, I mean, not good, but the fact that technology exists, you only need the will from power to use it, and then all of a sudden it gets dark real quick.
Yes.
And I think the most average people won't understand the risk of that, because it will just sound like a movie. But the technology is there.
Yeah, exactly. When you least expect it. Exactly. Yeah. So
I just kind of want to bring this back a little bit to Binance, because I'm so interested, and I know the people watching are going to see the title and know that you worked at a high level in Binance. So before we wrap the podcast up, I've just got a couple of questions, if you don't mind us just going back a little bit. What is something about Binance that people would just never expect from your experience working on the inside?
Good question. A couple of things. I think one, it's a very serious company.
Right.
It's a proper company. As May said earlier, thousands of compliance people, thousands of very intelligent people doing very smart things.
Yeah.
So that's really one. Secondly, I think the technology stack is just incredible.
Okay.
I mean, it must be one of the best systems in the world to be able to do the matching engine, to do that kind of trading at that volume, at that uptime, is just insane. So it's a really high quality business.
Yeah.
And again, perhaps if you're not necessarily involved in crypto, you think, it's just a crypto exchange. What does that mean? But that it is a seriously important technology company. Yeah. No question about it. And
it was interesting for me that you talked about coming from the highest level in Binance, actually the users being the priority, because I very often think that people don't feel like users are the priority. The exchanges are the priority to the exchanges. So it's nice actually that you talked about it being the other way around there. Yeah,
and I think that was really much the North Star. I think one of CZ said before my time, one of the first things when there was a technical glitch, people lost money, CZ back in the day paid all that back to users, and that was one of the very first demonstrations of that.
Yeah.
And even I think going back to some of the recent outages in October that happened last year, I think Binance was still covering those when many other companies wouldn't do that. So so it really stood up and I sound a bit like a fanboy, but it really did stand up to that.
What was he like to CZ? What was he like to work with?
I mean, he's a very smart guy. Imagine if you work for someone like Elon Musk, I imagine it's very similar.
Okay.
Because they're very clear on what they want, but not in an aggressive way. I remember once, CZ would just, because he's so busy, just tell you things. He'd say, your presentation's too long. You know, some people get upset by that, but then he actually qualified that. He said, when I say your presentation's too long, I'm saying it's just too long. I'm not saying it's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's poor.
I'm
not saying you're stupid. I'm not saying you're whatever. I'm just telling you it's just too long. And so you have to learn to take that feedback as face value. So he said, my deck's too long. That's all that he meant. He didn't mean anything else.
Yeah.
There was no hidden agenda.
There's no hidden agenda. That's just what it was. And so you took that to be is that when you were getting that sort of direct, that it was okay. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
You know, but of course today, we were, oh my God, what did he mean by it's too long? Oh my God, you know, and you second guess it, but he said, no, that's all I'm saying. So he was very direct on that. I think I've been with him. He's not a great small talker. He said that himself, you know, so I know a bit about, you know, his wife and his family and stuff, but, you know, you don't sit and chew the fat with him because he's always on.
Yeah.
And so that's again, he'll say to you, I'm not much of a chatter. So if I'm quiet, I'm just being quiet. I'm not ignoring you. So that was interesting. Don't take it
personal, it's just the way
it is. Exactly. Yeah. So I think the ability to sort of take feedback without it being personal is a superpower.
Yeah.
I really do,
Yeah. Neurodiversity at its best.
Well, I was just thinking that, but I didn't want to put you on the spot, because if you use Elon Musk as an example, right? The guy's clearly neurodivergent, but he's also probably a little bit of a genius at the same time. There's those lines all sort of go like this. And I'm kind of wondering, from some of the traits you're talking about, potentially that's going there. But you just don't know, do you?
No, it wouldn't surprise me.
Hyper-focus, driven. Tunnel vision, we need to get this done. And do you know when I thought it is when you were saying your contract said 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Well, that's how a neurodivergent person works. Because they can't think of anything else. Nothing's more important than the project. You just don't know, do you?
But you don't grow a business like that to that scale under the pressure that he's been under without hyper focusing on driving growth.
Do you think Elon Musk isn't hyper focused on his project? Of course, it sounds to me like he's the same.
And they're hardcore. I mean, you know, perhaps hardcore. You know, there are many companies where work-life balance is important, and not at companies like SpaceX and Binance, I don't imagine.
Yeah, you're either in or you're out.
That's it. And people who want to work there do that because they want to be in there and grind. And that's really what it is.
And actually having that resilience, because you were saying about if, as an example, my presentation's too long. Well, actually, you're having to have resilience in that. But imagine the resilience it takes from CZ to have to deal with some of the things that have come out about him and being under that spotlight, and the resilience to move that forward. So again, he's giving you that feedback, and maybe that's how he deals with things as well. Because to hold on to the small things, you can't concentrate on the big things.
No, exactly. And you know, and at that level where he operates, he's thinking about things that are just at 30,000 feet and above, right? And that's his job to do that. So
I think there's always speculation in the media, and I think that very often people in crypto think that crypto's out to get them, or the markets are out to get them, or the exchanges are out to get them. Do people in Binance trade? Is there that feeling that they've got knowledge that other people haven't got? What's your kind of?
I think generally not.
Right.
I was trying to think about this because I don't know whether it's in your contract that you can or cannot trade. But Binance has a very strong audit process. Right. And people left the business for, you know, not in any way doing trading, but just doing things they shouldn't be doing. People have said, I want to join Binance and join the listing team. That's what I want to get the listing team. That's what,
that would be an awesome place to be. I'm going to be honest. I wouldn't mind being sat there.
Yeah, exactly. But the reality is, it was absolutely ring-fenced. Entirely. Even to this day, I've never seen a listing contract.
Right.
Because that's just not where you need to go.
Yeah.
You know, and if you start poking around there, why are you interested in that? You know, so the guys that run the listing, we knew who run the listing team. They had a process, but you know, in fact, I was advising a project a while back, and they said, "Oh, can you help us get into Binance listing?" Well, no, I can't help you to do that because you just can't do that, you know. And so it's again, I'm very confident it's a ring fence protected operation that there's no insider.
It's not just the listing, it'd be the delisting as well. Yeah. Imagine getting the heads up that they're going to get delisted from Binance before everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, because we know what's going to happen to the price. Yeah. It's going to go down.
Yeah.
Fact.
Totally, yeah. But you now look at what's happening on Poly Market and oil trading and Iran war. You could never have that indication in Binance. Whoever is trading oil futures on Poly Market, in the Iran war knows something that would never happen in Binance.
That's good to know, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I think there is this air of exchanges can be dirty.
Yeah.
But what you're trying to tell us is actually the reverse. It sounds to me like Binance try incredibly hard to make sure it's not.
Yeah.
Which is good to know.
Yeah, I think it's good to know. Although the flip side of that is, again, back to some of the risks of the crypto industry. Who knows what happens with market makers and exchanges? I mean, that still is one of the soft underbelly of crypto that people do is what the hell are market makers doing and what are they doing with exchanges? That still is something that doesn't help the industry, I don't think.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen that before
I learned a lot about a market maker. So I used to make loads of content about the evil market makers. And then I was at Zebu and there was a guy that did a speech and it was something along the lines of, should the market makers be sent to prison? I thought, this is my speech. This is where I'm going. That's brilliant. I'm going to make some fantastic content. And I sat there and the guy was a market maker. So I thought it was somebody who was going to be saying the market makers are evil. And he was like, the problem is nobody understands what we do. And because you don't understand what we do, you think we're the bad guys. And I was like, oh yeah, that's me. That's why I'm sat here. Yeah. And then I watched him do his speech and actually it made a lot more sense.
Gave you some balance,
It gave me a lot more balance. I actually didn't realise just how important those guys are.
Yeah. Oh, they're very important. But again, back to that point when you're in a crisis, not saying market makers are, but you've got to get out and tell your story and tell your narrative.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people assume that
you only get your information people that... So I've been making content about the evil market makers, didn't even understand what a market maker fully did until that day. So that's where people get their information from, isn't it? So I understand why they wanted to get their narrative out there. But I learned a lot. I went and told him as well. I said, fair play. Yeah. You've won me over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big fan.
So I've got one final question. Tell me something, Steve, about Binance that nobody else knows.
Well, how about the Premier League football team that nearly had Binance as a shirt sponsor?
Oh.
And we'd worked on the deal for a couple of months, if not longer.
That's great marketing.
And
that's the best marketing.
This was going to be, it was around the time, it was the time when, FTX was doing, and Crypto.com were doing these big deals. We've got to do these deals.
Crypto.com was doing Champions League.
Exactly. And the Staples Centre, we thought, why don't we should do one of these. So we go to see this rather successful Premier League football club, and we think, well, we're going to put our names on the shirts. And we did the deal, and finally CZ said, well, you know what, I'm not sure I want to do this, after 3-month negotiation, etc. So that was it. So we may have been one day looking at Binance on a Premier League football shirt, but we walked away from that.
Can we say who? Which club?
All I'll say is that it's a red kit.
Oh.
You can work it out from that.
So it's not Wolves. It's not Chelsea.
It's not the Wolves.
It wasn't Leeds. Okay. Okay, no, I get you that. I think when I remember when I first started seeing crypto-related anything in football, I was so excited.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, crypto's it's now. It's arrived. It's real. And then I remember seeing it on the Champions League. I think it's Crypto.com anyway on the Champions. And I was like, wow, this is huge. Yeah. Then I saw Ripple on a banner going around the side of the pitch somewhere for Ripple for X. It wasn't XRP. It just was Ripple. And I remember thinking it was huge. So I think having Binance on the front of a football shirt, that would have been a moment when I've been like, it's maturing. Crypto's maturing. Into the big leagues kind of thing.
I'm in two minds whether it would have been a good deal or not in the end. It was expensive, and I think it would have brought the market. I mean, brand sponsorship gives you trust to a brand. It would have been very important.
For sure, yeah.
But it was expensive, and we knew how. And you suddenly about how is FTX affording all these things?
Yeah.
Well, we know how they're affording.
No staff. Staff in
exactly. Yeah.
In a penthouse in the Bahamas.
Yeah, totally. So I think it would have been good, but I think the return on those investment sponsorship, they're very hard to quantify ultimately.
Yeah,
aren't they, really?
Especially if Binance is not able to have UK users.
Yeah,
that would have been a real.
But Premier League's a global brand.
And of course,
exactly. Yeah, that was the premise of it. But then one of the questions, well, what happens, you know, if the FCA say you can't do this.
Yeah.
You know, but we never got into that anyway.
Yeah.
So we were nearly there. So you nearly would have seen that.
Nearly,
so that would have been
nearly.
There's a screenshot somewhere of the kit with a name on it somewhere.
Do you know what you should do is just before the next sponsor is going to come out for that team, you should leak it on the internet so people assume it's going to be that.
Create a bit of hype.
The fan forums go, oh, look what I've seen.
Steve, it's been awesome for you to be here today. Thank you so much for joining
You're
us.
welcome.
It's been amazing.
Yeah, I think it's been really good. And I think the opportunity to have somebody that's worked at a level of crypto that most people won't even get to see, let alone understand, I think it's been a real opportunity. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and we wish you all the best with all your future projects. Guys, thank you so much for watching. As we always say, new episodes drop every Friday, 7 p.m, right here on Spotify or on YouTube.